What's going on, guys? So I wanted to talk about kind of a theory and an observation that I've been having just in regards to the Delta. Pretty much last year, and I'm sure this year it's going to be the same, but I guess we'll have to find out. And what that is just talking about some of the patterns that I've noticed personally in the fishing as a whole in the Delta. Now, there's a lot of factors over the last 10 years or so that people talk about, whether that be, the grass, the spraying of the grass, the sea lions, all taking the water away, all the different factors that the salinity, intrusion into the Delta, all of these have affected the fishing lately. And, I've talked about it in other videos, but my experience with the Delta has been limited compared to dudes that are 40 or 50 years old. But I've spent quite a bit of time out here the last 4 or 5 years, and it's been really interesting. Like, when I first came out here and I knew nothing, the amount of fish that I would see that I believed were 8, 9, 10 pounds was kind of crazy, and I would kind of just see them like for no apparent reason. Like, I wasn't like, some master fisherman that's just finding giant fish all the time or whatnot, right? Like, it was kind of interesting. Like, you would just run into them. It wasn't odd. It wasn't rare. And that's what you hear the rhetoric from a lot of people when they talk about the Delta in the past is, oh yeah, you can catch 30 pounds, or it was taking 30 pounds, it's taking 35 pounds, it's taking 40 pounds to win tournaments. Like, why is that changing? And that's kind of something that I wanted to tackle and kind of talk about, and kind of look at the map and kind of talk about some observations. So there was a period of time where there was legitimately giant fish scattered through the entire Delta. You could pretty much go down any bank and there's probably big ones on it. Now, not to say that isn't the case now. I still think that there are banks in certain areas that obviously have really good fish, but as a whole, the Delta, I feel like, is starting to fish a lot smaller than maybe it used to. Maybe in the past, like, you could kind of catch 15 pounds anywhere, and that wasn't going to do anything for you because people were winning with 35, right? But now it's kind of like, now I just need to catch fish. Or I need that 15 pounds is a bigger deal than it used to be. You look at some of these tournaments the last couple of weeks, guys are winning with 20 pounds, and then second place is 18 and third place has 15, and then everybody just falls off the map. Like, that's pretty crazy, especially this is ranked as one of the best bass fisheries in the entire country, and it has been historically ranked in the top. And something that I've noticed, and this is kind of the whole theory, the point of the video, is regardless of what the reasoning is, like, salt's coming in, sea lions, increased water visibility from grass being sprayed, affecting the fish, water being taken away to other places, it appears that the far corners of the Delta are starting to play more of a factor. Like, you hear all these guys winning these tournaments, and they're like, oh my God, I'm burning 50 gallons of gas a day. I'm burning, 60 gallons of gas. I'm filling up my boat every single day. Oh, I had a 2-hour run to my first spot. Like, you keep hearing people say this, and it's like, assuming it's all true, right? It's like, why is that? And that's kind of what I wanted to get into, right? So when we think of like the Central Delta, right, like right around here, this place is probably getting hammered the most, right? But as you start to really like stretch yourself out into some of the far reaches, whether you're going east, you're going south, you're going north, you're going, whatever, you're going out west here, like, there seems to be a correlation where people are winning tournaments and they're going really, really far away to do it. And the area the last couple of years that seemed to be a big factor was up north, specifically like Liberty area, and also last year at least down south was like kicking fish out. And something that was a lot different the last couple years on the Delta, and I haven't, like I said, I haven't been around long enough to really like experience the trends per se, but we had so much water that came through the system the last 2 years that the South Delta really was fishing good early. And the South Delta, kicks off early at times, but I kind of feel like a majority of the time, this kind of area of the North Delta is like the first to go. And then it kind of just slowly blows through the system, and probably the West Delta would be like the last place to go, just based on water temperature and things like that. But for whatever reason, we had all this water come in, and the fact that all this water came in, right, we have places like up near Wimpy's where I got to change the map here so we can actually see what it looks like. But we had levees break all over the Delta. We had silt that was pushed out of sloughs that had been there for years. We had all kinds of things that kind of changed the landscape. A lot of the banks that people were used to fishing physically changed as a result of all this water that we haven't seen in so long. I mean, we were in a drought for like 10 years. So all this water really changed the river and in a way a lot of these spots set up, right? So people were running a lot of those same banks that they had ran historically, and they weren't catching fish. And people are, oh, there's no fish in the Delta. They're all gone. This place is horrible, blah, 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 blah. But yet every once in a while, people are still sticking these 30-pound bags, and you're like, hey, I mean, if people are doing it, these fish are still out here. And something I've noticed personally is it seems a lot more difficult to catch, a 4-pounder like everywhere. Like it's really seeming to start mattering more specifically where you're at. And something that me and a buddy were talking about, which I thought was kind of an interesting concept, is when we were having some salinity issues the last year or 2, 3 years, right? Before all the rain and everything, they were putting up that levee barrier over here, right on False River, to keep the salt from protruding too far into the Delta. And a theory that my buddy brought up that I thought was really interesting was, he's like, okay, we have fish that are out here in Sherman, they're out here in Big Break, they're out, doing whatever they're doing, right? As that salinity increases and it starts to push in here, I would assume that those fish start to get uncomfortable and they start to move away, right? So now you have this whole population of fish that live in Sherman, live in Big Break, live, out and about out west, right? And they're essentially getting pushed upriver, trying to get away from that salinity, maybe the seals, maybe all kinds of different things, right? And he was saying, hey, I wonder if that's why Liberty has been fishing so good. Liberty's been here forever. It's not like this place just like magically appeared, right? Maybe those fish kind of migrated up the Sacramento River and were like, screw this, I'm tired of being in this brackish water. Now I'm going to be up here in Liberty. Just a theory. I have literally no evidence to prove that, but just kind of a point that my buddy brought up that I thought was kind of interesting. And he thought about how good guys were doing up here for like a period of time. Like every single tournament, it seemed like guys were running up to Liberty, and that's where they were catching their fish that they were winning with. And, I just kind of thought about that with that salt. I was like, that kind of makes sense. Like, I'm sure these bass swim a lot farther than we think if they need to. Now, granted, I know a lot of them are lazy and they don't want to do anything, but they're willing to move. And we think about this water coming in the system and just blowing out the entire river. And, the fish haven't seen it. Their spawn was delayed. I kind of felt like, especially last year, that the spawn was all weird. Just the water was just high and it was cold. And I don't know, it just kind of seemed a little whack. But that would really make sense why down south would play a factor, because as far as like, water getting down here, it's also being sucked out, which kind of messes with the tides of this place sometimes. So actually having water in the system and allowing the tides to function normally and do what they're supposed to do down south, that would make sense. But, coming back to the whole, extremities of Delta sloughs, that's something that I think is being more of a factor, right? Guys are having to run water that they've never ran before to find fish. And I'd love for you guys to kind of like make some comments in the video and talk about some of your opinions, and maybe we can kind of have like an open discussion about things that you guys notice, because this is just me talking, and some of the buddies that I talk to, I don't know like a ton of people or anything, so this is just kind of my own personal thoughts. I'm just putting it out there. But I personally last year was like, hey, I'm going to start like just going up like random sloughs, like like getting real deep, like in some areas of the Delta that like I normally like never fish, like just some of these random dead end sloughs like all over the Delta, like places that maybe I historically like didn't put the effort to just like go back into like super deep. And I spent some other time like, oh hey, let me like where are places that just like I've never heard someone talk about, where are places that like you never hear dudes like say anything about, or maybe it's a pain to get over there. Like I've been, at least last season, I was spending more time like, I'm gonna like kind of investigate, and I'm gonna go explore and just find new water that like I haven't fished, because circling back to what we were talking about in the first place, right? A lot of the areas that have been good historically just like aren't producing like they used to. And why is that? And we can speculate as to why that could be, right? But it is interesting thinking about that theory that I've been talking about, right? That guys are having to run to these areas that are so far. And does it have to do with boat pressure? Does that have to do with the salinity? Does that have to do with the seals? Like those are the kind of questions I'd be curious to see what you guys have to say about it, and in some of your experiences, right? Because that's really what this is we're all out here trying to figure out the same thing at the end of the day, and that's where did all the fish go, and where are the big ones that I'm trying to catch. Now granted, I'm sure there's still plenty of giant fish that live in the Central Delta and a lot of the normal places that people have gone, but I don't know, it just seems like that quantity of just like bass literally just being everywhere you go in the Delta, it seems to not be like that as much, which is kind of sad if that's actually the case. But I would like to think that the last couple of years with the high water and the system just being flushed out, like I would like to think that there's going to be another wave of fish that are getting into that 4, 5, 6, 7 pound class, and those fish aren't going to be as rare as they seem to be lately. And I feel like the Delta has always been a place where you go to Clear Lake, you have 25 pounds, you have 5 5s. I feel like the Delta, it's not really like that. I caught an 8 and I caught a 6 and I have a 4, and then for some reason I have like a 2 pounder in my bag. Like it's a lot more of a mixed bag to break that 20 pounds or break that 25 pounds in the Delta. Like, guy comes in and weighs 35, he's probably gonna have like a 12 or something. Like there's just more variation in your limit. Like the chances of you going down a bank and catching 5 4s versus kind of having some more variety in the size in the Delta, I feel like that's kind of more what tends to be the norm out here. But yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys think. Leave a comment and tell me what you think about that theory. I'd be curious to know if anyone wants to comment about how it's been out west for them since all that salinity came in. Like, do people feel like Big Break and Sherman's, fishing like how it did historically, or has it been a little bit tougher out there and people have been wondering themselves why? I'm sure if anybody's been questioning them, they're not going to say anything, but just like kind of discussion, like, I still catch them in Big Break. Like, okay, cool. Like that's all we really want to know. Like, and have you guys been running like crazy far or checking out super backwater sloughs that you've never been to? Like, have you guys been finding success in that? Yeah, those are all questions that I'm curious about. I thought I'd just put this video out here. I feel like a lot of people don't want to like discuss like kind of like what's happening. And I think it's fun, honestly. I think I spent a ton of time on Google Maps, like exploring and just like trying to find new areas that I want to go check out. And I think that's what makes the Delta so like amazing, because you could legitimately go fish a different place every single time you went out, and you wouldn't run out of stuff for a very, very, very long time. So yeah, If you guys enjoyed this, like, comment, subscribe. I like pushing out these Delta videos, especially stuff with the Google Maps. I kind of just think it's fun because I spend so much time on here anyway. But hopefully you guys gained something from this, and please leave a comment about your guys' experience. I'd really appreciate hearing what you guys have noticed. Thank you. Bye.